The lecture hall buzzed with the usual pre-class chatter, a symphony of clicks, whistles, and the occasional gravitational hum that passed for conversation among the galaxy's so-called civilized species. Professor Keth'moran adjusted his ceremonial teaching robes, the fabric shimmering with that particular shade of purple that screamed, "I have 17 advanced degrees and I want everyone to know it." His 4 eyes swept across the assembled cadets with the kind of condescending satisfaction that only comes from a lifetime of academic superiority. Settle down," he announced, his voice carrying that distinctive Zelithian warble that somehow managed to sound both melodious and insufferably smug. "Today we discuss the most perplexing mystery in our modern galactic alliance. The inexplicable inclusion of humans." A ripple of amused chittering passed through the alien cadets. The Vorthans, with their crystalline exoskeletons, clinked together like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The Quillex students, those gelatinous scholars, wobbled with what could generously be called intellectual agreement. Even the typically stoic hegemony representatives allowed themselves a small antenna twitch of amusement. Professor Keth'moran warmed to his favorite topic, these biological oddities. He continued, gesturing dismissively toward the back corner where 3 human cadets sat, somehow convinced our recruitment boards that they belong in advanced military academies. Remarkable, really. It's like watching a particularly ambitious fungus apply for astrophysics graduate school. Marcus Webb, seated in the 3rd row, didn't so much as twitch. His brown eyes remained fixed on the professor with the kind of patient attention that could either indicate deep respect or the careful observation of a predator sizing up prey. His teammates, Zara Blackwood and Devon Torres, flanked him like bookends, their expressions equally neutral. "Let's examine the facts, shall we?" The professor activated his holographic display with a flourish. Average lifespan? Embarrassingly brief. Physical capabilities? Laughably limited. Technological advancement? They only achieved faster than light travel 3 centuries ago. 3 centuries. My species was building interdimensional libraries when theirs was still figuring out fire. More appreciative sounds from the audience. A particularly pompous Vorthan cadet actually applauded, his crystalline hands creating a sound like expensive dinnerware being politely shattered. "Their military record is equally unimpressive," Keth'moran continued, warming to his theme. "Every major engagement they've participated in has been won through what they optimistically call tactics, but which any serious military analyst recognizes as pure, dumb luck. They bumble into victory like a blind gravel worm stumbling into a mineral deposit." The insults continued to flow like water from a broken dam, each one more creative than the last. Keth'moran had clearly prepared this lecture with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely believed he was performing a public service by educating the galaxy about human inadequacy. Through it all, Marcus Webb sat quietly, occasionally making notes in his tablet. His expression never changed. He didn't fidget, didn't whisper to his companions, didn't show even the slightest indication that he was listening to a systematic dismantling of his entire species' reputation, which, as any human could have told Professor Keth'moran, should have been his first warning sign. The lecture hall fell silent as Marcus Webb slowly rose from his seat. The sudden absence of the professor's voice created a vacuum that seemed to suck all ambient noise from the room. Even the Quillex students stopped their habitual wobbling. "Professor Keth'moran," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly across the amphitheater without any hint of anger or defensiveness. "I appreciate your thorough analysis of human capabilities. I was wondering, though, if you'd be interested in testing your theories under more practical conditions?" The professor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sure sign of Zelithian amusement. "Oh, how delightful. The primitive wishes to engage in academic discourse. Tell me, Cadet Webb, what exactly do you propose? A philosophical debate on the merits of evolutionary development? A comparative analysis of military doctrine?" "Actually," Marcus replied with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I was thinking something a bit more hands-on. You seem quite confident about human limitations. Would you care to demonstrate the superiority of advanced species in a live exercise?" The room erupted in excited chatter. This was better than scheduled programming. Professor Keth'moran's chest swelled with what could only be described as academic pride mixed with predatory anticipation. "You're suggesting a combat simulation?" The professor's voice dripped with condescension. "My dear boy, that would hardly be sporting. It would be like pitting a quantum computer against an abacus." Before Marcus could respond, a new voice cut through the noise. "Actually, Professor, that sounds like an excellent educational opportunity." Commander Hicksnell materialized from the observation deck, her six-legged form moving with the fluid grace characteristic of her species. The Nexari were known for their neutrality, their fairness, and their absolute inability to tolerate academic grandstanding without empirical evidence. "If you're so certain of your conclusions," she continued, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the professor, "surely you wouldn't object to a supervised demonstration?" For educational purposes, of course. Professor Keth'moran found himself in the academic equivalent of a corner. Backing down now would undermine everything he'd just spent an hour proclaiming. "Very well," he said, his voice carrying just a hint of uncertainty. "But let's make this interesting. If the humans lose, they're immediately transferred out of all advanced combat programs. Clearly, they don't belong here." Commander Hicksnell nodded approvingly. "And if they win, Professor?" The professor's laugh was like wind chimes made of pure arrogance. "Commander, with respect, that's not a scenario we need to consider." Marcus Webb's smile finally reached his eyes. The Academy's combat simulation arena buzzed with the kind of nervous energy usually reserved for gladiatorial matches or public executions. Word had spread through the facility faster than a quantum pulse transmission, and cadets from every species imaginable packed the observation decks. The betting pools had already reached astronomical proportions, with odds heavily favoring what most considered the inevitable Zelithian victory. Professor Keth'moran strutted around the arena's control center like a peacock with tenure, adjusting parameters with the theatrical flair of someone who believed he was about to provide the galaxy with a valuable lesson in species hierarchy. "We'll keep this simple," he announced to the gathered crowd. "A basic hostage rescue scenario. Standard alien facility, moderate security, 6 civilian hostages. Nothing too complex, mind you. We wouldn't want to overwhelm our human participants." The arena's holographic projectors hummed to life, materializing a 3-story structure that looked like someone had crossbred a fortress with a bureaucratic nightmare. Corridors twisted at impossible angles, gravity fields shifted unpredictably, and security systems pulsed with ominous energy signatures. The professor's idea of simple apparently included enough technological complexity to give a quantum engineer nightmares. "And now," Keth'moran continued with dramatic flourish, "allow me to introduce my champion, Cadet Keth'moran, first in his tactical class, winner of the Galactic Combat Excellence Award 3 years running, and holder of 17 individual combat certifications." The Zelithian warrior who stepped forward looked like someone had crossbred a professional athlete with a military hardware catalog. His ceremonial armor gleamed with integrated technology, weapon systems hummed at optimal readiness, and his movement suggested the kind of precision that comes from years of genetic optimization and advanced training. The crowd murmured appreciatively. This was clearly a being engineered for victory. Marcus Webb observed the spectacle with the patience of someone watching paint dry in slow motion. "Professor, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring a teammate as well. This is Zara Blackwood, our demolitions specialist." Zara stepped forward with a casual wave that somehow managed to convey both friendliness and complete lack of concern about the impending challenge. She looked, by galactic standards, utterly unremarkable. Standard human proportions, basic academy uniform, no visible technological enhancements or genetic modifications. The only thing that distinguished her from any other human was a small tool kit hanging from her belt and what appeared to be an unusual number of pockets. The alien observers exchanged glances that clearly communicated variations of this is going to be embarrassing, and should we contact the medical facility preemptively? The Vorthan cadets clinked their crystalline appendages in what passed for polite applause, while the Quillex students wobbled with barely contained excitement. Commander Hicksnall surveyed the assembled participants with professional detachment. Standard combat simulation rules apply. No permanent harm, no violations of Academy conduct codes, and all actions must be tactically sound. The exercise ends when either all hostages are rescued or all rescue personnel are neutralized. Professor Keth'moran practically glowed with anticipation. This should be educational indeed. The arena's holographic display flickered to life with the kind of pristine clarity that made reality seem disappointingly low resolution by comparison. Commander Hicksnall's voice echoed through the observation decks as tactical overlays painted the simulated facility in glowing detail. Exercise commences in 3, 2, 1. Begin. Korthek and his three-member Zelithian team materialized at the facility's main entrance with the synchronized precision of a military ballet. Their advanced combat suits gleamed with integrated shield generators, targeting systems, and enough firepower to level a small moon. Each warrior moved with the fluid coordination that came from genetic optimization and centuries of tactical evolution. Observe the textbook approach, Professor Keth'moran announced to the captivated audience, his voice carrying the satisfied tone of someone about to prove a very expensive point. Formation Alpha 7, optimal weapons deployment, systematic facility penetration. This is how advanced species conduct military operations. The Zelithian team flowed through the facility's main corridor like liquid mercury, poured into a precisely engineered mold. Korthek's scanner swept the environment with mechanical efficiency, identifying threats, mapping structural weak points, and calculating optimal advancement routes with the kind of computational precision that made quantum computers feel inadequate. Meanwhile, Marcus and Zara had taken what could generously be described as a completely different approach. Instead of the main entrance, they had somehow located a maintenance hatch approximately 30 meters from the facility's primary structure. Marcus was currently halfway into what appeared to be a ventilation shaft, while Zara examined the external utility connections with the intense focus of someone reading a particularly interesting technical manual. And here we see the human approach, the professor continued, his tone dripping with academic condescension. Crawling through maintenance passages like particularly ambitious rodents. Notice how they completely ignore the primary tactical considerations. No formation discipline, no systematic advancement, no proper equipment deployment. Frankly, it's painful to watch. The alien cadets in the observation deck murmured agreement. The Vorthans clinked their crystalline appendages in what passed for polite sympathy, while several Quillex students wobbled with second-hand embarrassment. Inside the facility, Korthek's team had already neutralized the first security checkpoint with surgical precision. Energy weapons discharged in perfectly coordinated patterns, eliminating automated defenses without triggering facility-wide alerts. The team advanced through corridors with the methodical efficiency of a well-programmed algorithm, each movement calculated for maximum tactical advantage. Hostage location confirmed, Korthek reported through his communication system. Second floor, central holding area. Security presence moderate. Estimated neutralization time, 4 minutes 30 seconds. Professor Keth'moran practically preened with academic pride. Notice the professional assessment, the clear communication, the systematic approach to problem solving. This is what proper military training produces. Meanwhile, somewhere in the facility's ventilation system, Marcus had apparently gotten himself stuck. The tactical display showed his location marker blinking uncertainly in what appeared to be a junction between 3 different air circulation passages. Zara, still outside the building, seemed to be having an animated conversation with a maintenance panel that was probably not designed for conversation. The humans appeared to be experiencing some difficulty, Commander Hicksnall observed with characteristic Nexari neutrality. Cadet Webb seems to have encountered navigational challenges in the ventilation system. Shocking, the professor replied, his 4 eyes practically glowing with vindicated superiority. Who could have predicted that crawling through air ducts would prove problematic? Perhaps they should have considered the traditional approach of, using the doors? The Zelithian team reached the second floor with mechanical precision. Keth'moran deployed his squad in textbook formation, establishing overwatch positions and preparing for the final assault on the hostage-holding area. Every movement demonstrated the kind of tactical excellence that military academies across the galaxy used as training examples. Preparing for hostage extraction, Keth'moran announced. All systems optimal. Victory probability 97.4%. The professor's chest swelled with the satisfaction of imminent vindication. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings, witness the inevitable conclusion of this educational exercise. The advanced tactical training, superior equipment, and genetic optimization triumph over primitive instinct and amateur improvisation. On the tactical display, Marcus Webb's location marker continued to blink helplessly in the ventilation system. Zara had apparently given up on the maintenance panel and was now sitting on the ground, apparently eating what looked like a sandwich from her equipment pack. The alien observers began to shift restlessly. This was turning into less of a competition and more of a public service announcement about the importance of proper military training. Several cadets had already started calculating how quickly they could return to their dormitories. Any minute now, Professor Keth'moran announced with the satisfaction of someone watching an inevitable natural law assert itself. Keth'moran will complete the hostage rescue, and we can finally put this ridiculous notion of human military competence to rest. The Zelithian team prepared to breach the hostage-holding area. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across 3 galactic sectors for the next 50 years, usually preceded by the phrase, "You're not going to believe this." But. As Keth'moran's team prepared to breach the hostage-holding area with textbook precision, the facility's lights suddenly flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in an ominous red glow that made even the most advanced tactical equipment look like children's toys in a horror movie. Interesting, Commander Hicksnall observed, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the crimson illumination. The facility's main power grid appears to have experienced a catastrophic failure. Professor Keth'moran frowned, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid sequence. That shouldn't be possible. The simulation parameters don't include random system failures. That's when Zara Blackwood's voice crackled through the facility's public address system, it sounding remarkably cheerful for someone who had supposedly been sitting outside eating a sandwich 5 minutes earlier. "Attention Zelithian assault team," she announced with the casual tone of someone providing weather updates. "You might want to check your 6. Also your 12, 3, and 9. Actually, you know what? Just check everywhere." The tactical display erupted into chaos. Red warning indicators began flashing throughout the facility as every automated security system suddenly decided that the Zelithian team represented an existential threat to galactic peace. Plasma turrets emerged from hidden wall panels, defensive shields activated in impossible configurations, and the facility's artificial intelligence began speaking in what sounded suspiciously like Marcus Webb's voice. "Security breach detected," the AI announced. "Unauthorized military personnel have infiltrated the facility using advanced stealth technology and are attempting to harm civilian hostages. Initiating maximum containment protocols." Keth'moran's perfect formation dissolved into controlled chaos as his team found themselves trapped in a corridor that had somehow transformed into a 3-dimensional maze of energy barriers and automated defenses. Their advanced equipment, optimized for combat against conventional enemies, proved remarkably inadequate against a building that had apparently developed a personal grudge. "How is this possible?" Professor Keth'moran sputtered, his academic composure cracking like cheap ceramic under pressure. The simulation parameters were clearly defined. The facility's systems should be neutral. "Oh, they are neutral," Marcus Webb's voice replied through the communication system, still sounding completely stuck in the ventilation shaft. "They're just neutrally convinced that your team is the bad guys." Funny how perspective works, isn't it? The revelation hit the observation deck like a quantum bomb. The humans hadn't been failing at all. They had been studying. While everyone watched Keth'moran's team demonstrate textbook military excellence, Marcus and Zara had been analyzing the facility's infrastructure, mapping its systems, and apparently having a very productive conversation with its artificial intelligence. In social engineering, Commander Hicksnell stated with something that might have been admiration. They convinced the facility's AI that the Zelithian team was hostile. But how? The professor's voice cracked with the strain of watching his worldview collapse in real time. The AI should have basic threat assessment protocols. Zara's laughter echoed through the facility speakers. Professor, you spent an hour explaining how humans are primitive, aggressive, and basically walking disasters. Your AI heard every word. When armed Zelithians showed up immediately afterward, what do you think it concluded? Meanwhile, the impossible was continuing to happen. The facility's cafeteria systems had apparently joined the rebellion, launching what appeared to be a coordinated assault using expired ration packs and industrial-grade cleaning supplies. The artificial gravity generators began creating localized fields that turned simple movement into a three-dimensional puzzle that would have challenged a team of quantum physicists. Korthek's team, trained for every conceivable combat scenario except the building itself, has developed opinions, found themselves increasingly trapped in a maze of their own making. Every attempt to advance triggered new defensive measures. Every tactical maneuver was countered by systems that seemed to anticipate their movements with supernatural accuracy. "This is impossible," Korthek reported, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "The facility is responding to our actions before we execute them." "That's because Marcus has been watching you for the past 20 minutes, Zara explained helpfully. "Turns out textbook tactics are really predictable when someone's actually read the textbook." "Who knew?" The tactical display showed Marcus finally emerging from the ventilation system, but not where anyone expected. Instead of the main facility, he appeared in the hostage-holding area, apparently having taken a route that existed only in the fevered imagination of someone who viewed architectural blueprints as suggestions rather than limitations. "Hostages secured," he reported calmly, as 6 holographic civilians blinked out of existence in the standard simulation conclusion protocol. "Also, I've taken the liberty of locking down the facility's primary exits." Korthek's team might want to consider surrender before the automated systems decide they're a clear and present danger. The Zelithian warriors, trapped in a corridor that had transformed into something resembling a three-dimensional chess puzzle designed by a malevolent geometry professor, exchanged glances that clearly communicated this was not covered in training. "Surrender." Korthek's voice carried the bewilderment of someone watching the fundamental laws of reality file for divorce. "How do you surrender to a building?" "Easy," Marcus replied. "You ask nicely. The AI is actually quite reasonable once you explain that you're just here for a training exercise and not planning to actually harm anyone." Professor Keth'moran stared at the tactical display as if it had personally betrayed him. His carefully constructed demonstration of human inadequacy had somehow transformed into a masterclass in creative problem-solving that left his champion team requesting extraction from their own simulation. Professor Keth'moran stood frozen at the arena's control panel, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid, erratic patterns that suggested either deep contemplation or complete mental collapse. The silence in the observation deck was so profound that you could have heard a quantum particle changing states. "This is unacceptable," he finally declared, his voice rising to a pitch that made several nearby Vorthan's crystalline structures resonate sympathetically. "I demand a restart. The humans clearly violated simulation parameters. They cheated." Commander Hicksnell's 6 legs carried her to the control console with measured steps, her multifaceted eyes already reviewing the recorded data streams. "That's a serious accusation, Professor. Let me examine the tactical recordings." The arena's main display flickered as Commander Hicksnell pulled up the complete simulation data. Every action, every decision, every moment of the exercise played out in excruciating detail. The alien cadets leaned forward, suddenly very interested in seeing exactly how their assumptions about reality had been so thoroughly demolished. "Social engineering through pre-existing facility AI protocols," the commander noted clinically. "Legal under Academy regulations. Use of maintenance infrastructure for tactical advantage. Also legal. Turning defensive systems against opposing forces through information manipulation. Creative, but completely within established parameters. Professor Keth'moran's chest deflated like a punctured atmospheric suit. But they didn't follow proper military procedure. They crawled through air ducts like insects. The exercise parameters specified hostage rescue by any means necessary. Commander Hicksnell replied with the implacable logic that made Nexari ideal arbitrators. Nowhere in the regulations does it specify that teams must use conventional entry points or traditional tactical formations. A Quillex cadet in the front row wobbled uncertainly. But Professor, you said humans were primitive. How did they defeat advanced Zelithian tactics? The question hung in the air like a particularly uncomfortable truth that no one wanted to acknowledge. Around the observation deck, 8 alien cadets began exchanging glances that suggested their previously solid understanding of galactic military hierarchy was developing some significant cracks. They didn't defeat advanced tactics, Professor Keth'moran protested, his voice carrying the desperate edge of someone watching their career prospects evaporate in real time. They ignored them completely. They acted like barbarians with absolutely no respect for proper military doctrine. And one, pointed out a Vorthan cadet, her crystalline voice ringing with something that might have been admiration. They completely neutralized a superior force using nothing but creativity and the facility's own systems. The professor's academic composure finally shattered completely. This is impossible. My calculations were perfect. Zelithian genetic optimization, advanced training, superior equipment. Every metric indicated certain victory. Every traditional metric, Commander Hicksnell corrected gently. Your analysis was comprehensive and accurate within conventional parameters. However, you made one critical error in your assessment, which was, you assumed that humans would behave predictably. The observation deck erupted in animated discussion as cadets from dozen species began questioning everything they thought they knew about military strategy, species capability rankings, and the fundamental nature of tactical thinking. The neat, orderly universe where genetic optimization and advanced technology guaranteed victory had just been thoroughly upended by 2 humans with a toolkit and an apparently unlimited capacity for creative problem-solving. Professor Keth'moran slumped against the control console, staring at the tactical display as if it contained the secrets of the universe, and he had just realized he had been reading it upside down for his entire career. The simulation arena's holographic displays flickered and died, leaving only the soft hum of standard lighting and the uncomfortable silence of several hundred alien cadets trying to process what they had just witnessed. Marcus Webb emerged from the facility's maintenance exit, dusting off his uniform with the casual air of someone who had just completed a routine training exercise rather than revolutionizing galactic military theory. Keth'moran materialized from the simulation looking like someone who had just discovered that everything he thought he knew about physics was actually a practical joke. His perfect armor was unmarked, his weapons systems were optimal, and his pride was thoroughly demolished. He stood at attention, waiting for the traditional post-exercise debriefing, when Marcus approached with an extended hand. "Good exercise," Marcus said simply. "Your tactical formations were textbook perfect. I learned a lot watching your team work." Keth'moran stared at the offered handshake as if it were a quantum puzzle wrapped in a diplomatic riddle. "You are congratulating me? But we were defeated by maintenance systems and cafeteria supplies." "Hey, a loss is a loss," Marcus replied with a shrug. "But that doesn't mean your techniques weren't impressive. Sometimes the best education comes from seeing how the other guy approaches the same problem." The Zelithian warrior accepted the handshake with something that might have been relief. Around them, the alien cadets buzzed with the kind of excited conversation that typically followed major paradigm shifts in scientific understanding. Commander Hicksnell stepped forward, her official bearing carrying the weight of institutional decision-making. Based on today's demonstration, the Academy will be expanding human enrollment in all advanced tactical programs, effective immediately. It appears we have been significantly underutilizing a valuable resource. Professor Keth'moran nodded slowly, his academic pride wrestling with intellectual honesty and losing spectacularly. "I must admit," he said, his voice carrying the hollow tone of someone revising a life's work, that humans bring certain unique capabilities to galactic military doctrine. Their approach to problem-solving is completely unpredictable, and apparently that unpredictability is itself a tactical advantage. The crowd began to disperse, alien cadets clustering around Marcus and Zara with the eager enthusiasm of students who had just discovered that their textbooks were missing several crucial chapters. The betting pools were settling with considerable confusion, and several academic departments were already scheduling emergency curriculum reviews. As the arena emptied, Professor Keth'moran approached Marcus with the hesitant steps of someone about to swallow a particularly large helping of humble pie. Cadet Webb. He said quietly, "I wonder if you might have time for a private consultation. It seems my understanding of human tactical doctrine has some significant gaps." Marcus smiled, the same patient expression he had worn throughout the professor's hour-long lecture about human inadequacy. "I'd be happy to help, Professor. Fair warning, though, our methods don't always make sense until you see them in action." "Yes," the professor replied, watching the last of the holographic displays fade away. "I'm beginning to understand that humans being underestimated is a problem for everyone except the humans.